Today we're going to be installing Nextcloud, and we're going to learn how to expose it to the public internet and secure it so that you guys can use a replacement self-hosted Dropbox solution. So let's jump right into it. I'm using Proxmox as my hypervisor solution. You can see that I have a Nextcloud set up currently. We're going to be deploying a new one using the turnkey Linux container image within Proxmox. Now, do keep in mind when you do use these turnkey Linux images, you will need to update them as they do not stay updated very often. Some things you'll find is they don't handle the app updates, just the security updates for the Linux container. So the first thing you're going to need to do is go into your storage that you've allowed container volumes to be placed on, as well as container templates. You're going to go into the templates and you're going to search for Nextcloud. You'll see that there's a version currently is 17.2-1. I already have that installed, so you can see that right here. So you can see that here that I have the template already installed. What you'll do is just go into templates and hit download. Once it's downloaded, it'll be available. You're going to right click and do a new container, or you can click up here for new container. We're just going to put in our root password. I'm going to name this Nextcloud 1. Unprivileged containers are really good to have for security reasons. An unprivileged container, if exposed, does not give the user access to anything outside of this container. So I like to leave this as an unprivileged. You're going to select the data store that contains your turnkey image. Select the image. Since this is a test, we're just going to give it 8 gigs of disk. We'll give this 2 cores. I'll give it 1 gig of memory. And we're going to be putting this in my DMZ VLAN. So I'm just going to tag it with VLAN 40, and we're going to run with DHCP at the moment. So we'll hit next, put in our DNS settings in both fields here. Next, finish, and we'll let this complete. Okay, once it's completed, you'll have the task OK if you're running on Proxmox. I would assume you are if you have to use these images. So now you'll see that it's not powered on. We're going to just go ahead and start this container. We're going to let it run, and then we'll sign in, and it will run us through the steps to get this set up. Okay, we're going to sign in with the credentials. It will always be root if you're using Proxmox containers. We're going to enter a password for the MySQL adminer. I have already set up my own password, so I'm just going to put this in here. And I like to make these different than my admin account. So now I'm going to set my password for my admin account. Confirm that. And then here you're going to do the domain that you're going to be sharing this on. So for me, I'm just going to do share to, as this will be temporarily. I'm going to skip the API key for turnkey. And then I'm going to put in my email so that I can be notified. Yes, this is correct. Now it's going to ask you if you want to install security updates. Yes, do this. Again, these containers are not always updated, especially for applications. If you're getting the containers that are just Ubuntu or an OS image container, this will pretty much handle everything, but just remind yourself, once you do a application, you'll need to go into that app and update that app as well, as those are not handled and properly maintained with these turnkey Linux images. So we'll wait for this to complete, and then we will move on. Okay, so you can see that we are now at the point where we can browse to our web page. If we just copy this, it is going to HTTPS redirect us, but we can put this, and notice now we're at HTTPS 10.0.40.1.14. If you get this, it is because you're accessing it via IP, and the trusted domain that you selected in your setup was your public DNS record. So to fix this issue, we're going to go back into our container here. One thing we can do actually as well is just go ahead and SSH into it. So we know that our IP address is 114. Accept that. Sign into your container. And here we are. So you're going to want to go into your config, which is located in var www nextcloud config php. Inside of this config, you'll see the trusted domain section here, and you'll see that it includes just your, or in my case, my share2.core.cloud. So we're going to add another array in here, and we're just going to put the IP address that we're currently accessing it from. Put the comment at the end with the syntax just like I have it. Save that file if you're using Nano, Control X, Y, Enter. Now if we refresh this page, we're presented with our login. You're going to use admin and the password that you created. And now we're in. Okay, perfect. So our Nextcloud is set up. The first things you're going to want to do for security purposes, from my opinion, would be to first create a new account and get rid of the admin. You'll also notice that our Nextcloud version is 26.0. Let's go ahead and create that admin account first, and we'll get into this piece. So if we go up here to users, we're going to create a new user. Click new user up here. Let's just put our information in here. We'll assign it to the admin group. Don't miss this. Add new user. Okay, new user is added. If we log out, let's sign back in with our new user. And this just helps from anyone on the public side not being able to brute force as the admin account. Okay, let's go into users, and then we're going to delete. Let's make sure you have the admin settings. We're good. So we're going to delete this admin user. Yep. Perfect. Now you have Nextcloud running with a new user other than admin with admin privileges. The next thing you're going to want to do to secure this down is you're going to go into administration settings, and we're going to update from 26.0.0 to 26.0.5, and then we're going to upgrade to 27.0.2. You kind of have to do this in a rolling process. So if you just hit open updater, it's going to ask you to click the start update button. We're going to go ahead and run with that, and we will wait for this process to finish. Okay, all of this is automatic. Once you get to this portion, you're going to disable maintenance mode and continue in the web-based updater. It's going to redirect you to a new page, and you're going to hit Start Update. If you'd like to, you can see the detailed logs. I really don't like this page, though, because it scrolls you down. It's not really in a best method, in my opinion. But you'll see that it completed the update without me even knowing. It's just pretty quick, so up to you if you want to see those detailed logs. Now remember, we're not on the latest version, but we had to do the rolling upgrade. So if we go back into admin settings, you're going to see that now there's Nextcloud 27.0.2. So you're just going to follow the same steps, open the updater, start the update, and we wait again. Okay, so again, after some time, you'll get presented with this screen, disable maintenance mode, and continue in the web-based updater. All right, so you can see that all of these will be updated, which is good. We want to make sure that all of our apps inside of Nextcloud are up to date, as these are the most vulnerable things that can put you out into a bad situation. So start update. You'll see that it also had mentioned a Linux terminal command that we could have used to update this as well. One thing to just keep in mind, if you run into an issue where you get hosed at that screen and it says you're in maintenance mode and you can't do anything, what you can do, and I have run into this before, is if you go into your container, go back to that config, and you'll see that there is a maintenance entry that gets set to true. If you're stuck in that position, just set this to false, and either wait some time or reboot your container, and that will fix it and allow you to go back to that updater screen. So if we go back into admin settings again, you will see that we're now on 27.0.2. And if we look at the Nextcloud latest versions, the latest release is 27.0.2. Perfect. Okay, now let's secure this thing and expose it to the internet. Okay, the first thing you want to do is go into security on your profile and make sure you've set up a very secure password. I'm assuming you've already done this. After that, we want to go to apps and we want to search for the TOTP two-factor provider. We're going to enable this feature. Now that that's enabled, you're going to go back into your profile and go into security. Enable TOTP, and you're going to scan this with your Google Authenticator or whatever you'd like to use. Once you scan this, you'll be presented with your two-factor code where you can verify it here. So let me just put that in. All right, now we're verified. Now from here, go ahead and just sign out and sign back in and make sure that it's presented and everything is working okay. So you'll see that I sign in. Now I'm presented. Let's go ahead and wait for the code to roll over from the one we just used, or else it will not work. And let's hit submit. Perfect. So now we can see that we have two-factor authentication turned on from this account. Now let's enable it for all admin accounts. So if we go into security under administration, we're going to enforce two-factor authentication. And we're going to just set it for admins. Save changes. Perfect. You can also set up your password policy in here. I like to enforce all of the above, just to make sure passwords are not very basic. You'll notice in Nextcloud that it saves changes automatically, so there's no save button within here. If you go out and back in, you'll see that those are retained, so we're good to go there. If we look at basic settings, you can see the cron job or the background jobs are currently running under Ajax. It says this is for a use case of a single user. This is a use case for 1 to 5, and then this is recommended for all instances. So let's enable the cron job as it's recommended. So the commands that we need to run for this, you'll see here is it's gonna this example will run every 5 minutes, and this should be completely fine. And it needs to be ran as the www-data user. So we can simply copy those commands and put those in our terminal here. I noticed when copying these italics that it causes some issue. So we're just going to write this out. Cron tab-user www-data e. So this will take us into the cron job editor for this user. And you'll notice there's nothing in play here. Press I to go into insert mode. Move your cursor at the very end of the line and press enter. This will allow us to put a new line. And we're just going to copy the syntax that is inside of this article. So this is going to set this job to run every 5 minutes. We're going to hit escape, write quit, which is : WQ. And now that cron tab has been updated, you'll notice that it's installing the new cron tab. To check this, you can see on the next line, you can run cron tab user www data and then L for list, and it'll list out the cron job, and you'll see that placed inside of here. Perfect. Now we're okay because that is the correct installation path. So this is all we need to do from here. If we go back into our admin settings, we have cron recommended ticked. So this should be all we need to do. If you wait, you'll see that the cron job is ran within the 5-minute period. You can just watch and refresh that to make sure it's working. For your email server, you probably would want to set this up. If you want to use Gmail, you can follow the Gmail recommendation. But for me, I have a postfix box in my environment. So we can set up the settings here for me. This is a local DNS record for my server hosted on site, and it requires no authentication. If this is in your DMZ environment and your postfix box is located in your LAN environment, make sure you enable a firewall rule to allow port 25 from the DMZ box back into your postfix box in the other VLAN. Now within sharing, we have a couple of options we can run. If you want to set any of these up, I'd definitely recommend looking at this so you don't have users sharing things that you have shared to other users outside in the world. You can also change your theming. I like to just change this to my name or my tag. Definitely change your web link to go to what you have set up. And then we'll just keep all these default. And again, these are saved without hitting a save button. Everything else we're going to leave as is. So let's go ahead and expose this to the internet. I'm using a reverse proxy called HA Proxy on my pfSense box. If you're using Nginx Proxy Manager or any of the other solutions, just make sure that you're routing your proxy to this IP address hosted on 443. So the first thing we need to do is create a DNS record for our Nextcloud. I'm using Cloudflare DNS, so I'm just going to hit add record. We're going to do share to and put my IP address. And hit save. Let's verify we can ping this. So the record exists. Now I'm going to jump over to my pfSense and we're going to set up the certificate. I'm using Acme. We're going to name this share2. share2.core.cloud. DNS will be Cloudflare. And now we're going to have to input some options in here. You can find these inside of your Cloudflare account. If you go to Overview, you'll see your zone ID and your account ID. We'll copy those. So we'll start with my zone ID. And then we'll grab my account ID. Next, you're going to need your Cloudflare API key and your token. These can be found under API key. Here is your API key. You'll use the global API key. And then if you don't already have a token, you're just going to hit create token, edit DNS, edit zone DNS. And then depending on your setup, you can select the specific zone or you can just do all zones. You're going to hit continue to summary. It's going to set it up and you'll get your key. Store that because if you forget it, you're going to have to do that process again and you'll end up with a bunch of zone keys. Now I already have this, so let me copy that as well. And then just put in your Cloudflare email address. Scroll down, I keep all of this default, 60 days to renew, perfect, that's fine with me. And then within this screen, you're going to hit issue and renew. It'll take a few seconds and you should see a long blob of text. where you can scroll down and see certificate chain as well as the status of the certificate. If we refresh this page, you should see a last renewal and validity for that certificate. Now we need to add this onto the proxy. So I'm going to go to HA Proxy and I'm going to create a new backend. We're going to name this Share2. For the server, this is where I'm going to forward that request. That was on 114, port 443. Now, because this has a self-signed certificate, I'm going to hit encrypt SSL, scroll down, leave all of this default. I will not be doing a health check method, but I will put in my email address for notifications. Save this, apply the changes. Now, since it's grayed out, we need to assign it to a front end. Here's my front end. We're going to click Add on the ACL. Name this Share2, host matches, and then the domain name that you've set up. Copy this name because you're going to need it into the actions. Create a new action, and we're going to force it to use the Share2 backend. And we're going to use the Share2 ACL name, which is what we set up in here. Last thing you need to do is just add that certificate onto your front end. There's Share2. Scroll down and click Save. After we apply these changes, we will have a public hosted Nextcloud. So let's try it out. Share2.core.cloud. And there we are. If you run into an issue where this is not a trusted domain, depending on how you set this up, again, run into that container config and add this as a trusted domain and then restart that container. So let's just make sure it's working. We should be presented with a TOTP. Yes, we are. Let's put that in. And there you go. You have now created your own self-hosted Dropbox, and you can move all of those files into your environment, and you can also create new users and have this shared out with your family and friends. Pretty cool. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for the next video. Have a good day.